All right, hi everyone, and welcome to this Hangout on Air about Google Shopping Christmas optimization tips. My name is Nicole Primo, and I'm the Partner Education Lead for Google Shopping and Emerging Ads. And I'm excited to be with you here today. We know Q4 is a super busy time for you and all of your clients, so we're hoping to give you some tips and tricks that you can start working on today that will make sure you're really well set up and ready to launch into a very important holiday season or Christmas season. So without further ado, I will just mention two quick logistical things. First and foremost, at any point if the recording is delayed or you feel like you've missed something, feel free to refresh, and it's all recorded so you can skip back to wherever you last left off. And also at the end, we're leaving some time for questions. And so please do enter your questions throughout the session using the Q&A widget on the right-hand side of your screen. Do note you can also vote up other people's questions. So if you have a similar questions, feel free to +1 it and it'll move to the top of our list and get our attention at the end of the session. All right. So to get us started, we figured we would talk a little bit about what we saw last year. So at the end of the day, and in a nutshell, we saw really strong growth on Google Shopping during the Christmas 2013 season. We saw 110% growth in traffic that we sent directly to merchants year over year, and Google Shopping is continuing to grow at this rate and drive merchants more traffic, more qualified shopping traffic. So last quarter, which would be Q2 2014, we sent more traffic to merchants than we did during the entire holiday season in 2013. So that just gives you a little taste of what's in store, because we expect the growth to continue and for it to be an even bigger holiday season this year. So you've probably heard us talk about this before, whether you're using text ads, display ads, or now shopping campaigns. But at Google, we know that our users are more constantly connected than ever before. With search technology paired with a device at everyone's fingertips, we're always working on improving our mobile shopping experience. So on smartphones in the Christmas 2013 season, we saw a 110% increase in the click-through rate on mobile product listing ads year over year. And in Q4 2013, we saw a 70% year over year increase in mobile searches that we ended up showing a mobile product listing ad for. So our triggering rate, or the percentage of queries we saw mobile PLAs on, has been steadily increasing since the launch of mobile PLAs just over a year ago. So the growth momentum is continuing today. You can see some of these stats here, and ultimately what we know is that people are shopping on whatever device they have at their fingertips, and we're seeing more growth year over year, and we expect the trends to continue. So this brings us to our main purpose for today, which is talking more about some Christmas trends and what you need to be preparing yourself or your clients for to be successful this holiday season. So just to get us started, Black Friday took on a new term last year that we call Gray Friday. So this happened because Black Friday sales were a bit more diluted as retailers started promotions and deals earlier, and consumers responded to that earlier shopping season. So more and more consumers are leaving their family celebrations in the US to start shopping on Thanksgiving evening. So we know that this is typically thought of as an American holiday, but if you look at global search query trends, we actually see that this is happening globally, where we're seeing more peaks and valleys around this day. So if we look at consumer demand for Black Friday, you'll notice that not only is consumer interest up 27% year over year, but they're actually starting about a week earlier last year to search for Black Friday information and deals. So we expect to see holiday shopping start earlier again this year, with 29% of people to start their holiday shopping even before in October. So within the shopping realm and what purchasers look for, pricing is ranked number one and shipping is ranked number two as the most important factors for online shoppers. So 9 out of 10 shoppers cited low prices as important or very important, and 58% of shoppers have added items to their shopping cart just to be able to qualify for free shipping over a certain cart value threshold. So just very important things to consider as you plan your holiday promotions so you'll understand what's driving consumer purchase behavior. In terms of mobile, and just really to drive that point home about how important it should be within your holiday strategy or within your Christmas strategy, the daily time with digital is now 5+ hours per day. And so that is up over 2 hours from 2010 to 2013. And then within that, mobile, which includes smartphones and tablets, actually accounts for 60% of total digital media time spent, which is up 50% from only a year ago. So mobile site traffic reached 38.2% in March of 2014, which is more than double the percentage from March 2 years earlier, so March 2012. So this isn't to say necessarily that you have time to go and perfect your mobile site or even create one if you don't have one coming into Christmas. However, it is to say that this should be part of your strategy already, and if it's not, something to start working on as soon as possible in 2015. So with a little bit of context out of the way, let's now get into what I think is the fun part, which is the tactical, what you should be doing step by step to make this holiday season a success. So hopefully all of you are very aware and very familiar with the fact that product listing ads are now managed through shopping campaigns. And we're really excited at Google about this change because we believe and we have seen evidence that advertisers have a lot more at their disposal. So they have more functionality, they have more reporting insight, and more ability not only to optimize, but also to create efficient, time-sensitive, streamlined campaigns. So for us, it's just a matter of helping you guys understand what tools you have available to play with so then you can go and run with them and make them successful. So all of that said, we have other channels to work on and other ad formats to optimize. So instead of talking you through topics, we're going to talk you through recommendations via a calendar or timeline. So think of this like your Christmas countdown. First, you have September and October. So even though we're pretty close near the end of September, we're going to cover what you should be hopefully already starting to talk about within your companies or with your clients that you manage campaigns for, and also give you some recommendations for how to think about budgeting. Then October will be a time when you actually evaluate your baseline and make sure you have a strong foundation to build successful campaigns on. And then in the latter half of October, we'll show you how to start stacking your campaigns so that you can do more to improve your return on ad spend through a couple more tactical, customized campaigns. So after October comes November and December, and this is a time when hopefully if you've done kind of what we're recommending, everything should be totally set up and all you need to do is switch gears to act defensively and respond to in-season performance changes. So let's jump into it because we have a lot of content to cover. So let's talk about this in terms of checkpoints and things you need to do to be successful in Christmas. You'll notice each color corresponds to the month. So with blue, we're talking about hopefully what you should be able to accomplish by the end of September. So first and foremost, we recommend as checkpoint number one that you start by making a list of the products that will be essential in your Q4 strategy. So what we mean by this is the process of looking at your performance insights across text ads, display ads, YouTube ads, and product listing ads to understand which brands, which categories, even which individual items are doing really well for your business. You also want to consider key questions like which products drive reliable revenue, or kind of that top performer basis. Which products do I need to win this holiday season so that I'm top of mind in 2015? And then also, what products are being heavily promoted through other channels? So if you have a certain brand that you carry a certain brand that you know is spending a lot on billboards for a certain product line, or TV buys for a certain product line, those would be great things to kind of double leverage in your campaign, simply by kind of using the momentum that brand generates through their own advertising and leveraging that in your reseller or your campaign. So ultimately, what this boils down to is a simple list. This is probably a little too simple, but something like this that says, what are the key categories, brands, and items that I need to be focusing on in my Christmas promotions? As the second checkpoint, it's a theme, or it's a spin on the variation. So basically what you'll do is you'll take all of the products that you looked at in the first checkpoint, and you'll turn that into a retail calendar. So this might involve working with a different part of your team or a different part of your company, the ones who actually set up the promotions, for example, or who align the holiday seasonality timeline. So you can see some examples in this table of some trends we're seeing in the US that are being picked up in some EMEA countries like the UK. So here we have a couple of key promotions that center around which products I know I want to promote and when is it going to be especially important to get in front of shoppers. So as checkpoint number 3, now that you've done some of the harder work of looking at your insights, figuring out which products to promote when, now you need to talk to your team about forecasting your Christmas budget. So ultimately, forecasting your budget is about getting the right people in the room who have a say that can help you understand your consumer demand, where you're using your 2013 AdWords spend as a baseline. You need the people who can help you project your query growth using year-over-year AdWords performance, using tools like Google Trends as well as search reports. You also need to think about how you'll account for larger e-commerce trends that maybe you can understand through your website analytics, so your overall traffic patterns. And then finally, you need to start thinking about how to calculate your anticipated cost. So this would probably be the person who's most closely managing your AdWords account that can help you understand your historical average CPC and click-through rate, and also use the new shopping campaign's benchmark max CPC to understand what the averages are across multiple retailers. So it sounds like a lot, but ultimately it's a conversation that tries to help you understand, what do we think we're going to need to spend this Christmas season to be successful? So then, once you have that budget number in mind, now you'll need to index your budgets according to your ideal daily spend. So as you know, all AdWords campaigns have a daily budget, so you'll need to take whatever that overall number is and slice and dice it for query spend, or for spend on a day-to-day basis. From there, you'll need to think about how, as query volume grows and peaks towards the end of November, how are you going to allocate enough budget, especially later in the season, so that you're getting the queries you some kind of buffer to account for any unanticipated peaks or valleys. Okay, so we changed to green, which hopefully is a good signal that we're starting to talk about October. So as mentioned earlier, Christmas means an overall increase in shopper query volume. So you're going to spend the first half of the month making sure the basic components of your PLA strategy are well optimized, and you'll start with your data quality in your feed. So as a basic starting point for feed optimization, we recommend that you start by making sure that you're submitting 100% of the products you sell online in your feed. So think about it this way. If you sell 1,000 products and you only submit 500 in your feed, that's 500 additional products that are not being shown to shoppers that are searching for them. So in order to capture all of the opportunity that's out there for you during the high query volume time around Christmas, you need to make sure that each item in your inventory is represented as a line item in your data feed. So one way that you can quickly gut check this if you're not sure what percentage is being submitted for you is you can actually use your Merchant Center account. So on the very first dashboard page that you see when you open it, you can quickly view the products overview, which gives you a trends of how much inventory you're submitting in your feed. You can then benchmark this against your internal SKU count so that you understand roughly how well you're doing in terms of meeting that 100% submission rate. So once you have 100% of the products in your inventory in your feed, the next step is to ensure that 100% of the products in your feed are eligible to show as PLAs. So that first step, we got everything in the feed, and this step, we're making sure everything in the feed is eligible to show as product listing ads. So just in kind of a nutshell, a little bit simplified, but essentially Google disapproves and prevents products from running as product listing ads for two primary reasons. The first reason is inaccurate information. So essentially, if you're telling us in your feed that the item costs $10 and you're telling us in your website that it's actually $20, obviously we don't want to send a shopper to that page because it's a really bad shopper experience, and we'll actually disapprove that item from running until you fix the inaccurate information. So that's the first reason. The second reason that we'll disapprove products is if they violate Google Shopping policies. So you can see a total list of policies in the Google Merchant Center Help Center, but essentially this is things like if they use, or we believe they use, ingredients from endangered species, if they violate the weapons policy, those types of things where just fundamentally the product cannot serve because it violates our policies. So what you want to make sure you're doing is addressing the disapprovals listed in your Merchant Center Data Quality tab. And some common ones are listed here. I'll emphasize two. The first one is Google can't crawl a product's image or landing page. So this sounds very technical with this robot.txt file, and it is a little bit technical, but it's fairly simple, and we have a great Help Center article that walks you through what you need to check for. Essentially, what you need to make sure is that your website is allowing Google to scan your website images and scan the information on your website, because we need to be able to do that in order to generate the product listing ad. So it sounds technical, it's actually pretty easy, but basically just think about it as allowing Google to read your site in images. The second one I already mentioned, which is the price mismatch and availability mismatch. So then last but not least, I'll just mention the finding and submitting the correct unique product identifier. So this can take a little bit of work on your end because it requires finding the universal product code, the EAN, or the manufacturer part number for each and every product in your feed. But I can tell you that in my experience, this is the single best way to improve your performance, is by finding and submitting the correct UPIs. So not only will it help you fix your disapprovals, but it'll actually get you better results as well. So one last tip in terms of optimizing your feed, you do want to think about any sale prices that you want to include for your products. So this goes back to kind of that retail calendar planning that we did in September, but essentially it's if you know that something is going to go on sale for 3 or 4 or 5 days, use the feed attributes sale price and sale price effective date to essentially schedule those price changes. This allows you to avoid that price mismatch error that I just talked about, because automatically, as soon as the date you specify takes effect, we'll change that price in your product listing ad without you having to do it manually. So The next checkpoint, checkpoint number 5, gets into that strengthening your PLA foundation core activity that I mentioned earlier. So what we'll be talking about here is what you need to do to make sure the very basic parts of your campaign are well optimized and set up to run properly. So I want you to think about it in terms of this pretty simple graph. We have a couple of different suggestions we'll make that are different in terms of how much time they require on your end. And also, as you can imagine, the more time intensive it is, typically the better return on ad spend you'll get. So we're going to start with the simplest, and we'll start with what we have is a core campaign. This is where you advertise 100% of your inventory and it always runs. You'll use this campaign for long-term testing and optimization, and you will, in the next steps, we'll make sure it's well set up following a couple of hygiene steps. So first and foremost, you want to ensure that you have one active all products group. This catch-all ensures that 100% of your eligible inventory can run as product listing ads. So it's really important to keep track of where this catch-all lives, especially if you're using multiple ad groups or multiple campaigns. So you'll note here, essentially the way you make sure that you have an active all products group is simply by making sure that everything else in all products catch-all has a bid. So it's not excluded, it has a bid. That means everything in your inventory is eligible to run. The next step is making sure that you're tailoring your bidding strategy using the benchmark max CPC metric. So this is a new one to shopping campaigns and really powerful because it allows you to understand if you're underbidding or if there's a data quality issue in your feed. So start with the question, are you happy with a product group's performance? If yes, no action needed, you're all set. If no, then you need to understand, is my bid higher or lower than the benchmark max CPC for that group? So if my bid is lower, that's really easy. I can use the bid simulator to estimate how much I can increase my bid to get more traffic and more impressions. If my bid is already higher than the benchmark, I know that I have a data quality issue, and increasing my bid is not going to help me all that much because it's already higher than the average bid for that group. So if my bid is higher than the benchmark max CPC, I need to take a look at the data quality for my product group, products in my feed. And one place I would start is by looking at the titles for the products in that product group. So you want to make sure that you're using human-friendly language throughout and that you're using language that shoppers are going to be searching for when they go to Google and type in a search query. So this means we sometimes see that brands will have their own naming conventions for colors, so they might say lightning instead of yellow. Obviously, most people are probably not searching for lightning dress or lightning shoes. So instead of using kind of your specific terms, try to think in consumer language, which is the more generic, basic, quick and easy search terms. So start with looking at your titles and make sure everything is well optimized. So now that we have our core campaign in check, the next step will actually be to do a little bit more ROI tailoring to focus on top revenue drivers. So you can see in this graph, we're moving to a little bit better return on ad spend potential and a little bit more time required. Essentially, our goal here is to create a separate campaign that allocates a more substantial budget to the products that are the most important for driving consistent revenue to my business. So the first things first is you'll actually need to identify what are my top performing products or my top revenue drivers. You can certainly do this using your internal metrics. So if you have sales numbers or more information internally, you can start there. But you can also do this in your AdWords account. So in the Dimensions tab, you'll click on View Shopping, and then you can sort by which brands, which product type, or even which individual IDs are doing particularly well. Once you choose a dimension, for instance, let's say brand, you can then sort by conversion data if you have conversion tracking enabled, or by clicks and impressions to understand top volume products. Once you have a list of all of your top performing products, you can label those as a top performer in your data feed. So essentially this allows you to say that even though this, let's say 2,000 products does not share a product type or a brand, it's split across multiple categories, I want them all to be considered a top performer. Then you'll create a new campaign, and in the campaign creation workflow, you'll change the priority setting to medium, telling Google that this should take precedent in terms of bids over my core campaign. So you'll go through the workflow during which you'll set it to medium priority, and then once you set it up, you'll need to subdivide for the custom label attribute where you put your top performer label. So essentially think about it like this. All of a sudden what you're doing with this new campaign and what shopping campaigns enables is a very easy selection of just the top performers that you labeled in your feed. So essentially you say, here's my new campaign and I want to target my custom label 0, which I know represents my top performers. The next step is incredibly important because in order to prevent all the other inventory that is not labeled as a top performer from entering this campaign, you now need to do the opposite of what I suggested for your core campaign. You need to make sure that you're excluding the everything else in all products group. Essentially by doing that, and as you can see in this illustration, I'm telling Google I want to target my top performers tagged products. Maybe I bid differently within my top performers by brand or product type, but that's it. I don't want any other products using this budget or participating in this campaign. Okay, so of course you'll assign a budget, and just keep in mind that this budget should probably be a little bit more unlimited than your core campaign because it represents the higher earning potential products. So instead of kind of lumping these higher earning potential products into your core campaign, you want to actually make sure they have a more unlimited budget because they represent higher earning potential for your products. So we've talked about two campaigns. At the bottom, we have our core campaign, and then a little bit more intensive, but a little bit higher return on ad spend potential. We have our best sellers or our top performing products campaign. And now we're going to talk about a third and final campaign, which is your seasonal campaign. So again, we've moved up into the right, meaning this is even a little more tricky to set up, but even higher return on ad spend potential. And essentially what you want to do here is a separate campaign for the products you want to promote more heavily around Christmas, because this lets you create and schedule the campaign well in advance. It allows you to allocate budget for the products that are especially important during the Christmas season, and this does it all while simplifying your post-Christmas reporting. So you'll have one campaign that you and your team can look at in Q1 when you're back from holiday and look at for understanding how you did during Q4. So to get us started, the first thing you'll need to do is recall that retail calendar you set up in September. And you'll need to map each group of retail promotions to an existing attribute in your feed wherever possible. So for instance, if you're pushing your electronics with a 15% off and 2-day shipping, you might use the attribute product type equals electronics. If you're using IDs, you can simply use those IDs. Brands are pretty simple. Where it gets more complicated, once again, is for any groups of products that span multiple product types, multiple brands, or multiple IDs. And that's where you'll need what's called, again, that custom label. So in this, my Christmas products that I really want to push more aggressively, I need to add that custom label. So once I've added the custom label to my feed and re-uploaded it, now once again I'm going to create and schedule my seasonal or my Christmas campaign. So what this looks like is in the campaign creation workflow, I'm going to set the priority to high. Again, we really want to make sure that the bids in this campaign trump any bids in other campaigns. So we'll set the campaign priority to high, and then right in the settings, I'm also able to schedule it. So if I only want it to run December 1st through December 19th, I don't have to worry about pausing, unpausing. I simply set it up in the settings, and then it's good to go, and I set it and don't think about it again. So once again, as you saw in the bestsellers and hopefully intuitively now, when you're ready to start targeting in your campaign, you'll need to choose the attribute that you previously used. So in the case of my Christmas promotion, once again, I'm going to target my custom label that I've used to tag my products with Christmas promotion. Alternatively, if I'm creating that campaign for my electronics sale or my electronics promotion, then I might use product type, or if I'm creating it for certain brand promotions, I'd use brand. Again, essentially trying to single out the products that I want to use in this more tailored, more specific campaign. Once again, it's hugely important to exclude the everything else in all products catch-all in everything but your core campaign. So essentially, instead of preventing our non-top performers, this time we're preventing any product that is not included in our seasonal or our Christmas promotion in this campaign. Last but not least, you'll set your budget. And again, make sure you're referring back to the planning your team did in September to understand which campaign is being accorded what expected query volume and how much daily budget should it get, so that you're not limiting traffic, but also so that you're not spending all your budget too early in the season. We talked about mobile earlier, and we'll just give you a couple of quick ways to think about how to connect with your mobile shoppers, since we know that query volume is increasing on mobile, and they definitely are an important part of your strategy. So to connect with mobile shoppers, essentially you start by thinking about your mobile product listing ads. You want to make your inventory available by increasing your mobile bid modifier, which we'll talk about in more detail, which increases your likelihood of showing to shoppers on their mobile phones. Next, you want to make sure that you're optimizing your mobile website. Make it easy for shoppers to find what they're looking for and to compare products, and then most importantly, make it easy for them to check out. I've seen way too many sites on my own as a consumer myself where the checkout process is 8 or more steps. I get all these errors, and I can tell you I never complete those processes because it's just too time consuming and too frustrating. So check in with your cart flow and make sure everything is smooth and as quick and short and easy as possible. Last but not least, make sure you're measuring all conversion types in your AdWords account. We'll talk about how to use estimated total conversions to get the full picture. So first, in order to direct people to your mobile site, you'll need to do some data feed updates potentially. This is a new attribute that was launched just a couple weeks ago, and it's called Mobile Link. So just like its name sounds, you'll be able to specify your mobile URL per product in your data feed using the mobile link attribute. Next, check in with each campaign's mobile bid modifier. So you'll do this under settings and then devices, and essentially you want to make sure that your mobile bid modifier is not negative 100%. If it's negative 100, you've basically opted out of showing mobile PLAs, which again is not a good strategy to use given the query volume around mobile. So we recommend you can determine your mobile bid modifier by segmenting by device to see your performance on mobile versus desktop. You can also look at and replicate what you're doing on text ads. So if you have a strategy that's worked well for you on text ads, we recommend giving that a shot on your shopping campaigns and measuring and responding to performance there. In terms of measuring all conversion types, this is as easy as enabling a column. So essentially, enable this estimated total conversion column to get the full picture of your campaign performance that allows you to optimize your mobile bid adjustments more wisely, given a better understanding of how mobile is performing as part of your strategy. Okay, we've made it to checkpoint number 9, which brings us to red, which is the November and December. So this is our last couple of checkpoints, so please do enter any questions that are bubbling to the top of your head given the amount of content, and stick with me just a little longer, we're almost there. So first and foremost, in terms of adjusting to in-season performance, we talked about the importance of feeds, and hopefully you won't have any issues whatsoever, but you do want to keep an eye on any feed disapprovals that are arising in November and December, because again, if the product is disapproved, it will not show as a PLA. So make sure you've arranged with your team, whether it's part of your IT team or your account management team, make sure everybody's on board in terms of a process for flagging and fixing any potential disapprovals that'll come up. And you can do this starting with a simple check of your Merchant Center account on a day-to-day basis. Next, as you get deeper and deeper into November and then December, you're going to want to use your impression share metrics to find any uncaptured opportunity. So as you probably know, impression share shows you of all the possible times your PLA could have shown, what percentage did you show? So you can imagine that if you're showing under a certain threshold, let's say 50 or 60%, there might be more you can do in terms of increasing your bids and uncapping your budget so that you get more out of your most important product groups. If it were me, I would look at impression share every single day, specifically within my Christmas campaign, as well as within that top revenue drivers campaign, because those are the ones that I know I'm relying on to generate a bulk of my Christmas revenue. So again, any product groups that have a lower impression share, it's very easy to understand the potential impact of increasing your bids simply by using the bid simulator, which you can launch when the graph icon is available next to your max CPC. So this is a great example of just understanding where is it that my bids don't get me any more bang for my buck, and where is it that I could increase to maintain profitability, but also get some incremental traffic. And certainly one additional thing you want to check is making sure that you're not going dark midday or mid-season. So you can use the Opportunities tab to very quickly see which shopping campaigns are budget limited, meaning that they're not showing till the end of the day because they run out of budget at some point before midnight. You can also see this by segmenting your data by time of day in the Dimensions tab. And if you see that there are 0 clicks or 0 impressions after a certain hour, that's a really good indicator that the budget is running out and you need to address that in order to make that campaign active whenever people are shopping. So we've made it to the end, and we'll just do a quick summary as you guys also enter some of your questions. Essentially, here's a checklist. I know we went through a lot of steps, and it can feel like a lot to do before the Christmas season really kicks in. But just think about it in terms of 3 key buckets. September is all about planning. It's about taking time to speak with the people on your team who can help you understand what products are important to promote, what promotions are we doing, and how much budget do we have to work with over the next couple of months. October is then about acting on or executing based on the insights you got in September. October is all about making sure your campaigns are set up in a tiered structure that will help you allocate budget to the right groups of products within your inventory according to how strong they perform and how important they are to your Christmas strategy. November and December is all about running your business. So hopefully your AdWords account is very well set up by this point. You're seeing good results. At this point, you really want to make sure you're using what little time you probably have to manage your campaigns, really to focus on where you can make the most impact. So mostly thinking about where you can improve your impression share and where there's opportunity to nuance how your budget is being spent across campaigns and across the time of day. So that brings us to our questions section. I will take just a moment. It looks like we've got some great questions already in the widget, and we've got some votes as well. So please do, as I read a couple of these and get back to you, please do enter any last questions you have, and we'll make sure we get to them. Okay, so let's get started. We'll answer this first question from Lisa, and it's a very popular question and a really smart one. So Lisa asks, while the CTR increased on mobile devices, how did the conversion rates develop on mobile devices as well? So it's a great question, and definitely a point that I hear a lot of people thinking about. So while we can comment on click-through rate increases, we can't comment on conversion rate because that's private data. So what I would say you can do is look at your own website. If you're not opted into mobile right now, try a small experiment and see what you see. And again, what that estimated total conversions column is really meant to help you see is how is the total performance. So we understand that while people may not totally convert on mobile, especially if the checkout is a more cumbersome process, they may start their shopping on mobile while they're sitting on the sofa or while they're out and about, and then they may finish that conversion online. So you want to make sure you're present wherever people are shopping, but I totally understand that at the end of the day, it's about sales. So we are trying to help you with tools that help you understand what is the bigger picture. And I'd say if you're unsure of it in your own account, start small and work from there. Okay, and a question that's shared by Sharon and Remy. Basically, the question is, after the presentation, can we share the file in PDF or PPT format? So we won't be able to share the presentation itself, but feel free to use this recording. You can send it to whoever you think would be interested in watching it. Certainly something that we hope you'll check out and share. Okay, a question from Coralie. Is Impression Share available for shopping campaigns in the UK? Great question. Yes, Impression Share is available for any product listing ad advertiser using shopping campaigns. So hopefully everyone, or very nearly everyone in all countries. So yes, Impression Share is available. Okay, and I only have 2 more questions, so if you have other ones, or a couple more, if you have other ones, make sure you're getting them in before we close this down. So let's see, so a question from Mike. Is there a way to see where my products rank on mobile PLA? So I think what you're asking is really about kind of average position or something equivalent, because I know in text ads, it's very different being stacked number 1 versus number 11 on desktops, and also where you are on mobile. So at this point, we do not have any kind of average position metric, either on desktop or on mobile. So you can get a sense of it by kind of trying to trigger your own PLA, but I will just note that that's something we're thinking about how to get you the right data for in the future. So obviously, part of the challenge with this is PLAs show in a bunch of different variations. You might have noticed the 8 format, the 4 format, the 2 format. So we're trying to figure out what is the best way to show you where, on average, your product listing ads are showing across the various formats they can show in. So long story short, probably more information than you were actually hoping for. At this point, we don't have average position, but it's something we're thinking about how to share with you in the future. Okay, question from Dennis. If your website is responsive, do you still need to set the mobile attribute? So that's a really good question. Technically, probably not, but I believe for like response times, it is a best practice to still include that mobile redirect or that mobile URL in your AdWords or in your feed. So I would say, to be on the safe side, it's certainly something I would recommend doing, but also understand that it's probably not technically required. Okay, and question from Jenny that also got quite a few +1s. So Jenny asks, can you comment on CPC developments year over year globally? So EMEA, US, etc. So the stat we shared about the CPCs growing, no, I'm sorry. Okay, so we don't have a stat about CPCs, but that 110% growth in traffic sent to merchants over the last year is global. So the stats we shared at the beginning are global in terms of how much traffic has grown, and then in terms of CPCs, I would just kind of, to find out for your clients, or if you manage clients, or to find out for your own business, I'd look at your year-over-year performance and try to understand that. But then again, also using that new benchmark max CPC value, that's going to give you a really good sense of how your CPCs on average compare to a much wider pool bidding on similar products. So I would take that benchmark max CPC metric in your most important product groups, for instance, let's say a certain brand of shoe, and that gives you a really good sense of how much on average all of the people participating in the auction for that same brand of shoe are paying or bidding. Great question from Sophie. So do you know if product ratings will be fully functional in the UK by Christmas? So it's a great question, and I personally don't know the answer. Right now it is for US targeted campaigns. I would certainly recommend keeping an eye on the AdWords blog as well as the Google Commerce blog. That's where we post all of our latest developments. And if you keep an eye on that, you'll certainly see that if it does become available to other countries. You guys have great questions. So here's another one. Here's one from Mike. So what is the difference in CTR for mobile PLAs that the user needs to scroll to the side versus the ones that are in the first 2-3 positions? So for those of you who aren't as familiar with the mobile PLA ad unit, on the mobile device, it's all in one row, and they're basically little squares with pictures and prices, and you're able to swipe to get more products or more mobile PLAs. So I think the question is about, of the mobile PLAs that show, the ones that are on the screen pre-swipe versus the ones that are on the screen after you swipe. And I don't have stats for what the average click-through rate difference is, but it's a great question, and certainly something I will pass on to our marketing team to see if there are case studies we can develop or use cases we can find. So great question. Okay, so I just have one more question in the queue. So anybody else who has a burning question or even just something you've been curious about, feel free to submit those while we answer this last one. So Joseph asks, will the merchant promotions beta be rolled out across traffic during Q4? So that's another question that I don't have the answer to in terms of kind of exactly what that team is planning. And that's one of those things that as soon as we know, you'll know, because it'll be in the AdWords blog or in the Commerce blog. So I'd keep an eye out on that. And it's certainly something that if you're not familiar with merchant promotions, I'd recommend taking a look at the website and looking at what the data feed requirements are, because it's a super powerful product. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, on your PLA, you get that special offer kind of annotation at the bottom, and then clicking on it reveals usually some kind of promotion, whether it's for free shipping with a code or for a discount with a code, and it's really, really great for conversion rates as well as click-through rates. So I'd recommend taking a look at the materials we've published where it is live in the US, and you can see what are the requirements so that you would be able to respond quickly if it does roll out during Q4. Great question from Roy. So Roy asks, can you view PLA campaigns or shopping campaigns on the Opportunities tab? I can't see any of mine. So the Opportunities tab populates with any campaigns where there are opportunities, or I mentioned specifically the use case of budget. So it will only, your shopping campaign will only show if there is budget to be had. So I would take a look, and I do know that we're making some improvements to the Opportunities tab, so I know we'll get more visibility into shopping campaigns after the first of the year. So take a look now for any budget opportunities, and then going forward, certainly something to keep an eye on. You guys are full of really tough questions, really good ones. So Thomas asks, when will AdSense for shopping be available for EU countries? Again, something that has not been published, so we're not sure entirely when it will be available. But again, I'll just plug one more time the AdWords blog as well as the Commerce blog. Those are great places to keep an eye on for the latest developments. And if you're not familiar with that program, I recommend just Googling it and then seeing what's happening in the US. So that, again, you're familiar with the requirements, you're familiar with how it works, so that if and when it launches, you're able to respond very quickly. Okay, I think that, oh, and I've actually just been told that our AdSense for Shopping is live in other countries, but it's via an interest form. So if you are interested in learning more, we will post the link on the Google Plus page so you can check it out there. And again, submit interest, certainly worth a shot and certainly worth learning more. Right, and it looks like we have one last question sneak in. So this one's from Vineet. How can I increase my ad revenue? It's the age-old question. That's what we're all searching for. So essentially, it's a really, really good question. I would recommend for increasing ad revenue, it's ultimately about making sure that you're targeting the right products and associating the right bids with them. So I would think of it in terms of return on ad spend. You have to spend money, obviously, to make money. And in order to do that, you need to make sure, again, you're targeting the right products and you're targeting them with the right bids in the right budget. So what I would recommend is rewatch this webinar and maybe pause it at each step so you can execute the tactical step-by-step as you go through it. Everything that we've outlined in this presentation is exactly what we would do if we were managing campaigns. And so we really hope that you'll follow it in terms of giving some of these things a shot and, of course, tailoring them to your specific country insights or your specific client insights. So great question. If you figure out the answer to it, let me know. But what I would recommend is starting with the step-by-step that we've laid out in this webinar. Okay, so I think that we did it. We covered a ton of content and we answered a lot of questions in just under 60 minutes. So thank you so much for your time. I know you guys are busy and we really appreciate you taking a few moments to spend with us. And I recommend strongly, if you have any feedback, let us know. But we're always happy to share with you, and thank you so much.